Hello and welcome to Undivided, everyone. I'm Brandi Kruse. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback, and thank you for voting. I am confident that every single one of you who has sent a ballot for this primary election tomorrow has already turned it in. If you haven't, that's okay. We'll inform you on some of the races that are on the ballot because we're going to do an all-election episode today before tomorrow's primary. And look, I know it's an off-year election, but here's the thing. If we don't get more people voting in every single election, then we just let the crazy people decide everything. And I'm going to make the argument throughout the show today as to why this election and tomorrow's primary is so absolutely critical for the direction of our state, particularly when it comes to 7 city council races in Seattle that are going to be on the ballot. And to me, Seattle, even if you don't live there, even if you're tired of hearing about Seattle, it is the economic engine of our entire state. What happens in Seattle absolutely matters. And there is a chance, an opportunity to give common sense a comeback in the city of Seattle. So we're going to dive into all of that. But of course, I've got to make my regular pitch to make you subscribers to the show. You can sign up for just $5 a month at undividedpod.com, undividedpod.com, and soon coming to undividedpod.com. Not yet, but soon, coming soon, in progress, is our merch store, our Undivided merch store. Nicole, you want to show off our shirts right now?
Let's do it.
Look at these. Oh, Common Sense 2024. And honestly, this is timeless because, you know, the next election, it'll be Common Sense 2028. It'll be perfect. Mine's a little crop top. I won't show you guys my belly if you're watching, but isn't that cute?
Yes.
Oh, we're going to have
Adorable.
T-shirts, hats,
and they're
bumper stickers.
Really soft. I want to emphasize the quality of the shirt.
Yes.
It's very nice and comfortable. I'm not a big T-shirt wearer unless it's this material, like the real jersey.
Really nice. So perfect. Anyway, I feel very ready to talk about elections today.
Fun.
Although I usually get pretty triggered halfway through when we get into Seattle conversations. But again, we're throwing the regular format out the window today, and we want to focus on some key issues, including obviously what's happening in the city of Seattle, but also education. If you have a ballot, and there's not every county is voting, so if you didn't get a ballot, don't freak out. It just means you had no races to vote on. But the counties that are voting in tomorrow's primary election: Chelan, Clallam, Grays Harbor Island, Kitsap, Kittitas, Lewis, Mason, Pacific, Pierce, San Juan, Skagit, Snohomish, Thurston, and Whatcom counties. And I will say, so obviously Seattle's big, but there are also a lot of school board races. And man, we talk about election or education related issues so much on this show. And I know school board races aren't like the sexiest thing. You know, I voted for president or senator or governor, but all these issues we talk about in our school system, electing common sense people to our school boards is so important. It is maybe the most important thing that we can do right now for our next generation. And so, you know, across Pierce County and Skagit County and Thurston County, which we'll talk about coming up, and Snohomish County, there are school board positions. So make sure that you do your research on those candidates. So we've got Seattle, school board positions. We're also going to go all the way over to Spokane. Spokane, while it's very politically different than the city of Seattle, Spokane has been dealing with some challenges around homelessness, around substance abuse and crime. And so we're going to talk about the mayoral race in Spokane. But let's, of course, start with the city of Seattle. To me, this is a make or break year for the city of Seattle and perhaps the state. You know, Seattle, not only is its success necessary for the success of our state in so many ways, I mean, tax revenue, but also tourism. I think a lot of the terrible ideas that we see rear their ugly head in Olympia started in Seattle. And if you can get some more common sense people on the Seattle City Council and stop some of those ideas from gaining traction in Seattle, then I think it stops them from gaining traction in Olympia. And so that's why we talk and we harp so much on what's happening in Seattle and why we're just laser focused on this election when it comes to voters in Seattle and what they're going to do tomorrow. So there are 7 of 9 Seattle City Council seats that are going to be on the ballot. And I'll tell you what, we're already winning even before Election Day because some of the absolute worst politicians in the entire state, some of the politicians who have pushed the most disastrous policies aren't even running for their seats again. Lisa Herbold in Seattle, the councilwoman who wanted to basically decriminalize all misdemeanors, give people poverty defenses, who supported police defunding, she's not even running again. Great, A+, we're already winning, even before tomorrow starts. And then, of course, Shama Sawant, although I'm going to miss Shama. When the election's over, I'm going to do a whole big, long story about Shama Sawant and I's relationship because we get along just fine. I've done so many interesting, memorable interviews with Shama Sawant over the years, and I think for the city of Seattle, having a bona fide socialist on the council as the longest serving member of the current Seattle City Council was fascinating. Not going to lie. Gave us great content, but she's not running for her seat again. She's going to go do some sort of national labor movement. So again, you have people who have been very destructive to the city between, their efforts to tax Amazon, their disrespect for law enforcement that aren't even going to be on the ballot. And that's just a win going in. But again, 7 of 9 seats on the ballot, only 3 of them have incumbents running. It is my contention that no incumbent in Seattle should be able to keep their seats. After everything that has happened, we need a fresh slate on the Seattle City Council. So Andrew Lewis, Dan Strauss, and Tammy Morales are the council members who are incumbents who are going to be on the ballot in Seattle tomorrow. So let's take them one by one. We'll start with Andrew Lewis, who represents the area of downtown, which obviously is important. I think this is the single most important race on any ballot across the state tomorrow is the District 7 race in the city of Seattle. For the love of God, if the voter turnout isn't high in that district, I'm just going to lose my marbles. So Andrew Lewis, the incumbent, he's running for a second term. He has 5 challengers, but I think the ones who have the most chance of getting through are Bob Kettle. He's a U.S. Navy veteran. It seems like some in the business community have sort of rallied around his campaign. Then you have Olga Aen, who in all transparency, I donated to her campaign. She's been on the show with us many times. She's the owner of Proshki Bakery. And then you have Erin Marshall, who is a Seattle police officer who actually works and has worked in the area downtown as a police officer. So he knows very well some of the challenges going on there. So we invited all the candidates on, by the way, those candidates that I just mentioned. We will hear from Olga Aen shortly, along with Erin Marshall, who agreed to chat with us before the primary election. But first, I just want to reiterate why I don't think Andrew Lewis should keep his job. The man flip-flops like no one I've ever known. So I think this goes back to in 2019 when he first ran for his job. He stood up sat during a candidate forum that I was moderating and said that he wanted, loved cops and wanted to hire more cops. Here's the clip.
We need to hire more police officers in the city. I see on a daily basis that there's parts of our city where we don't have the staffing numbers to have effective community policing strategies and deter the kinds of crimes of opportunity that are prolific.
Yeah. So he said that. And then 6 months later, he said that he wanted to defund SPD by 50%. So it took him 6 months to change dramatically on one of the key tenets of his campaign. So I already knew that the man couldn't be trusted, that he blows with the wind. Whoever shows up at the council and yells the loudest, and he just gave us another example of this a couple months ago. There was a common sense effort to pass a law that would allow the Seattle city attorney to prosecute open air drug use and drug possession. And Andrew Lewis told everyone he was going to vote in favor of it. And then at the last minute, because a bunch of activists showed up at city council and started screaming, he changed his vote. Again, here's the receipts.
I came out here on the dais today fully prepared to vote for this measure because I do think it is generally proper that we reconcile our SMC to the state law. But with the ending of community court, without any additional process, I just can't do it today. I just can't.
Gag. So again, and it's like, I've said so many times that Shama Sawant is actually one of the council members I have the most respect for because I never have to guess what she's going to say or do. I never have to wonder how she's going to vote today. You always know. The issue with Andrew Lewis is he can't be trusted. Before he took that vote, the deciding no vote to thrust Seattle even further into a drug crisis, he told people, he was texting people, I've seen some of the messages, that he was going to vote for it. And then he turned around and shocked everyone. You don't know what he's going to do. And then he had the absolute gall to send out a campaign mailer just this past week that said that he leads the way on public safety. I mean, absolutely unbelievable. Multiple people put out pictures of this because they couldn't believe it because it is such a lie. It is such a misrepresentation of his record. And for that reason, if not for anything else, for the reason that you do not know on any given day where he's going to fall on critical life or death issues, he simply should not be allowed to keep his job. We had on John Scholes, who's the president of the Downtown Seattle Association. He was on an episode of Sundays with Subscribers a few weeks ago, and the business community is just clamoring for help in downtown Seattle. Again, the economic engine of our entire state. And John Scholes, although he wouldn't say, we don't want Andrew Lewis to keep his job because they have to continue to work with him, it was very clear that the business community is not happy with what Andrew Lewis has done. Do you want him to keep his job?
I want folks that are, able to keep their word and are committed to addressing this fentanyl crisis, hiring more cops, making our streets and neighborhoods and parks safe and healthy for everybody. So I don't get to determine whether Andrew Lewis or anybody else keeps their job. That'll be up to voters. And I think we know what's on the minds of voters. It's public safety. It's this drug crisis. It's also revitalizing downtown. They want city leaders to be prioritizing that. So I think this election is going to be about the future of our downtown and the future of public safety in our community.
So we did offer Andrew Lewis a chance to. Nicole, no response from the Andrew Lewis camp yet?
Shockingly, no.
Wow, I don't know why.
Not even thanks for asking.
I don't know why he would not come on. That's bizarre. Anyway, so we did offer the leading candidates in this race an opportunity to come on and to make one final pitch to voters. And I do want to start with Olga Aen, but first, just a little bit of background to why, I have been such a fan of the idea of her running. One, I think the idea of a small business owner who has actively had to deal with some of the challenges in downtown Seattle is good. Someone who has real skin in the game, money in the game, employees in the game. And so I did a story on Olga Aen the first time we had her on the podcast. She had just closed down her location at 3rd and Pine in Seattle because there had been a shooting. It was just, I think, the beginning or the tip of the iceberg for so many of other things that had happened. And I wanted to replay the story that we did with Olga and the interview that we did with Olga at the time, long before she was considering a run for public office. Outside Pierogi, which looked like this just a week ago, the area was cleared out by Friday afternoon, but not nearly soon enough for owner Olga Aen.
It's just banging your head against the wall at this point.
It was the deadly shooting last Sunday that finally forced her hand. The bakery's surveillance video captured people running from the sounds of gunshots outside.
It's the third one in a month. So as a responsible business owner, I'm putting my employees and customers on the line to be shot. I mean, I don't want to wait till it's too late and my business is done because some of my employees died and I'm carrying this with me. I mean, my employee safety is my number one priority. My customer safety is right up there. We would open at 7 a.m., come out in the morning. If there was anybody here, we would ask them to kind of, just please, if you can step away, this is a private property. This was meant for people to have pastries here, and they would stand here, have their coffee, have their pastry. This shelf here that now is a, drug shelf.
Olga opened this location in 2018 during what was billed as the Pike and Pine Renaissance, a project aimed at making this area the, quote, best pedestrian experience in the city. Some renaissance that turned out to be.
I mean, how long of my life do I need to spend on one specific location? I had, again, 15 employees here. As I said, we had, I'm transparent with my number, we had 800,000 in sales a year. And going from that to thinking about my employees getting shot.
And then fast forward about a year, and Olga Aen, I featured her in a special series we did on unDivided called Truth Tellers. And it was at that time that she revealed for the first time that she was considering a run for Andrew Lewis's seat.
I cannot sit in my home, watch Netflix and be angry at government. I need to say things and keep them accountable as an individual because it is up to us. It is up to us in the city, in the state, in the country to make government accountable. Or if they don't want to be accountable, fine. But it's up to us to speak up and not just, step over people without housing or drug addicts or people with mental illness. Go home, turn your TV and be like, oh, this is disgusting outside. I don't think that's who we should be.
How far are you willing to take that sentiment? I have tried to shame you into running for something. I know other people have tried to as well.
I'm considering running for city council. I know that we have election this year.
So that's sort of the trajectory of her campaign. Olga was nice enough to join us to make one final pitch for why she believes voters in the 7th district in Seattle should choose her. Olga Aen, welcome back to Undivided.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, here we are. Final stretch. How are you feeling?
I feel like I never felt before.
In a good way or a bad way?
I don't know if it's good or bad. I have such a hope for the city that people will come out and vote, but also realistically, we know only about 13% come out and vote. And who am I to speak about it? But I hope that people will come out and they will pick the best people to move forward for our city. We need it. It is a time. If there is ever a time, this is a time.
Yeah, I couldn't help but think that you just had an incident that really underscored kind of why you're running. You guys did you get attacked outside your office or?
Yeah, my assistant and myself, we just got physically assaulted on Tuesday right before MLB game, right in front of my office here. It was quite an experience.
Yeah, that's wild. But again, it's like if you needed a reminder about why you're running, that's it.
Hey, if I choose to be attacked, let's do it while I'm running for city council and on video.
Exactly. That's the only campaign ad you need. Although I'm glad you guys are all okay in all seriousness. What have you been hearing from voters as you've been out talking to folks?
I have been hearing a lot of, generally we hear a lot of negativity about Andrew Lewis. That's pretty consistent. A lot of confusion, between what makes me different than Bob Kettle. I'm not sure why people are confused, but I would love to expand on that. And people appreciating people like me and Erin Marshall stepping up.
Yeah, you and Erin have been very complimentary of each other's campaigns. Is there strategy there?
There is no strategy, but if I would not be on the ballot, I would be voting for Erin Marshall because he's the only one besides me in, let's say, top 4 who feels gaslighted by our government, because what we see on the street every single day, it's not what they're saying on their meetings and agendas and TV.
Yeah. So you said that people that you speak to are trying to understand what differentiates you and Bob Kettle. So in your mind, what is that?
Well, the easiest question, what do we have similar? Which I think we're both human beings, but that's about it. I think we're drastically different people. I feel, and again, it's not good or bad, right? It's not that someone is good and someone is bad. We're just very, very different. What I feel is really important right now is safety is our #1 priority. And I asked Bob, hey, how do you feel when you walk in downtown? He said, it's okay. Well, for me, it's not okay. I'm scared. So, but I understand how he, being, tall man with a big frame and military background, for his triggers of anxiety and concern is way out there than mine as a woman, right? Or it has 2 teenage girls that worry every time they go outside. So I think that's the biggest difference is we perceive and feel information very differently. And I think I would represent, if I feel safe, a lot more people will feel the same thing than if Bob Kettle feels safe, for example. I hope I'm explaining it well. So that's one. And the second one, I think one of the biggest ones, safety is urgent, is important. I can't believe we're still talking about it. This is crazy. It's been 3-4 years. We're still talking about the same thing. So let me say something new. I'm a business owner. 60% of our revenue comes from businesses. Downtown is the biggest economic engine of the state. So we must have businesses in downtown in order to fund all the programs we want to fund, because businesses are paying taxes. And what happens if we keep running businesses out of the city? Our personal taxes will go up. And I don't think that's a solution. They're saying, well, let's convert downtown into condos. how much taxes are you going to have to pay as a citizen if we run up more businesses out of the city? So we have to be business friendly. We have to understand that businesses serve a good purpose. And I'm not even talking about small moms and pop shops and restaurants, which I'm super passionate about.
Yeah. Have you found yourself on the campaign trail trying to make more so the argument against Andrew Lewis or the argument for Olga Aen?
I think I differentiate myself. So if you look at top four runners, it's very easy. You see Andrew, who does not just say facts anymore. Like things he say, I Google it and I look up and I go to actual sources, and he'll say 75%, it's 22%. He says he's gonna vote, then he doesn't vote. It's just lying altogether, or not lying. I don't know what it is. I'm not sure. Maybe it's not lying. Maybe it's medical. Then you look at Bob Kettle, his whole campaign, I'm not Andrew. But what do you have to offer from your, except being not Andrew? You have to do more than just being not Andrew and have military background and, high stands and speak with your hands. Then I go to Erin, I'm like, okay, I can understand. I can see what Erin is doing. I can know that he understands what's going on over there.
Well, I can take let me just stop you there. I can take your comments about Bob Kettle in two ways. Either you just really don't think he's qualified, or you're really worried that he's going to do better.
I am worried that I am honestly worried. Why don't you ask me a tough question? Who would I pick between Lewis and Bob Kettle?
Who would you choose between Andrew Lewis and Bob Kettle?
I would pick Andrew Lewis.
Okay. Why is that?
Because I have not seen yet, maybe Bob can show it to us. I have not seen yet anything inside, any original ideas, anything that is generational, anything that goes beyond, let's clean up, it's not safe, I'm not Lewis.
Well, being not Andrew Lewis is a good start.
Huh?
Being not Andrew Lewis is a good start.
That is, I'm not Andrew Lewis as well. But yes, it is. But it's just, I spent so many hours talking to him. I did. And I was very hopeful for him. But he doesn't represent, I don't feel he can represent me, for example. He doesn't understand my problems at all as a woman, as a business owner. He really doesn't.
It's interesting because it's like, is that reverse psychology? Because when I think about it, I'm like, anybody but Andrew Lewis would be better. I mean, because we already know we're going to get Andrew Lewis, which is unpredictability. That's
true. And I see that, but this is my one person opinion.
Yeah.
And I was disappointed. I had very high hopes. So when I was thinking of running, when I saw Bob Kettle's name, I was like, thank God I don't have to do it. Someone will take him down. Literally my thoughts. And then I spoke a little bit more with him, and then a little bit more and a little bit more. I'm like, okay, I can't relate. The problems he's talking about is not the problems that will make a difference or that will make the city generationally better.
So from your perspective, Olga Aen's perspective, you and I have had some, I would say, emotional interviews in the past. I mean, we just replayed the clip of after you closed your store on 3rd Avenue. How confident are you that you can come in and work with whoever ends up getting through with you to make significant changes to the public safety situation downtown?
That's a really good question. But look at what I have already achieved on 3rd and Pike. Look how I almost single-handedly cleaned it up. That's working with stakeholders. That's speaking my truth. That's communicating, being able to communicate what do I see as a citizen of this city, as a resident of downtown. This was me communicating with stakeholders and making a difference right there. So I'm confident that I will. And I'm actually excited because last 2 months gave me so much more than I ever had in understanding and understanding how things work, understanding beyond business. I've been in the business world, so I surrounded myself by like-minded people. So we always go business, 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 business. And then last 2 months, it really opened my eyes even more for the incredible ecosystem that must be here, that includes business, that includes social services, that includes our aging population, includes our kids, includes our teenagers, includes our education. It has been an incredible journey.
Yeah. So for voters in District 7 who are still holding on to their ballots, what's your final pitch to them?
Oh my God, just vote. I don't pick. Do not listen to radio. Do not listen to any news. Do not listen to Brandi. Do not listen to anyone. Do your own research. Do not just read a paper. Do not just default into what people are saying as a masses. Spend 20 minutes on each candidate. Do thorough research. Look at their achievements, and then vote with your heart, like your life depends on it.
All right. I think that's a great place to end. Olga Aen, good luck to you.
Thank you.
So we certainly wish Olga the best of luck. Another contender in the District 7 race who's running against Andrew Lewis is Erin Marshall. And this is interesting. He's a Seattle police officer. He lives in downtown, works in downtown, and he says given the public safety crisis, he really thinks that he's the perfect person for the job. We chatted with him about his campaign. Erin Marshall, welcome back to Undivided.
Brandi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate your time.
So in the final day here of the campaign, how has the campaign trail, so to speak, treated you? I saw a billboard of you the other day.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm glad. Yeah, those aren't cheap. It's been fantastic. The overall experience has been really positive. It has been so nice to get back out on the streets. I was telling my teammates on Saturday, we went for a little training, and it's been nothing but a positive experience. People are really glad that a police officer is running for city council who knows about public safety.
Yeah, what do you? I didn't ask you this last time. What do your fellow officers think about you running?
Mixed bag for sure. I work in a very tight team. The community response group is now a part of the community violence task force. I think if you saw a couple of weeks ago, you saw me and my teammates chasing down a felon with a gun, in which we had to cut out from his leg in order to retrieve a loaded firearm from him. So we do really interesting and proactive work that is fantastic, that I love doing. Like I said before, I love being a police officer, but I think city council needs somebody who's a blue collar worker, who's a renter, who happens to know way more about public safety than any other candidate, and certainly anybody on the city council now.
Yeah, and this is certainly the race. I mean, I would argue, and maybe I'm a little biased in that regard, but of all the races on all the ballots across the state, I think District 7 in Seattle is the most consequential, I think, to people outside of Seattle as well, because what happens to downtown is so critical. It's the economic engine of our state. What are you hearing from voters down there about their concerns about what has happened to downtown Seattle?
Well, I have said this since the beginning, and I think I believe it more so now than I did before. I really don't think Andrew Lewis is going to make it through the primary. I have yet to have one person in 3 months come up and defend him, praise him. I haven't seen a single sign anywhere for him. You can thank him very much for the next 5 days that you're going to get robocalled and text message like nobody's business, because he just spent $30,000 making sure that you're going to get these annoying text messages during dinner. But I don't feel that he's going to make it through the primaries, nor should he, nor should any candidate who's running for re-election for the city council make it through the primaries. With that being said, the general consensus of people in Seattle is that they want somebody that is going to make a positive change. I'm not some fringy person. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I don't believe in any kind of politics that would divide us. I want us to get back together, to have, exactly as you said, common sense. The feeling right now, though, is real frustration and a little bit of scared as well, that people are really worried about where we're going in the future. And I got to warn you, there's a chance that we could make this worse, that it's not all sunshine. We do have a chance, however, to make it better. There are candidates that are running like myself and Olga and Pete Hanning, Wong, and Joy Hollingsworth. There are people that really do want to make positive change that I know I could work with. We do need little groups of people that can work closely with Sarah Nelson, who can work closely with the mayor's office. listen, I don't believe in absolutely everything that they believe in, and I'll call the balls and strikes as I see them, but I am somebody that can work well with a whole bunch of people. I just offer a point of view that is different from any other city council person.
Yeah, and I think you're right that even, one more common sense person, two more common sense people on the council can go a long way to
Absolutely.
blocking bad ideas, but also getting good ones through. Have you, Seattle has had an interesting relationship with police, going back to the consent decree and,
Yeah.
some community members who, for that reason, don't necessarily trust officers. Have you heard any of that on the campaign trail of people who don't like the idea of a police officer running for city council?
Brandi, I wish people were a little bit more forthcoming and would meet me face to face. I'm sure you, actually, in fact, I know you get a lot of this. Is that online, criticism? Anybody who's met me face to face, anybody who's met me out at a farmer's market is usually kind of surprised, like, wow, you're not exactly who I thought you were going to be. Like I said, I'm not some fringy element. I live in downtown. I was a bartender for a long time. I have a lot of common sense ideas. I want to be the voice for the majority. Now, also in 2013 is when I got hired. Actually, this month, July 2013, is when I got first hired for the Seattle Police Department. And I did that because the city of Seattle asked for local people to run for, or not to run, but to go for the Seattle Police Department or any kind of public safety. The fire department was the same way. And so I stepped up. I didn't really want to be a cop, but I took the challenge. And so I started at the beginning of the consent decree. So I don't really know a police department before the consent decree. Everything that I've learned is in the last 10 years. And it has been and is a remarkable police department. It really is. I've trained with other agencies around the state and the country to realize we have it really good here in Seattle. Could we do better? Absolutely. I have no doubt about that. Having somebody on city council who knows how the sausage is made is going to be very, very important. I listen to them speak, and it is probably the same as somebody listening to people talk about fantasy football who knows nothing about football. They are way out of their depth. Right now, if the city of Seattle is a car and you're having your check engine light come on, you probably don't want to ask the advice from the retired naval officer or the very successful business owner in downtown or a absolutely failed politician. Maybe you should ask the mechanic, what should I do? And right now we have a public safety problem. So of all the people that are running for District 7, maybe we should get the blue collar cop who's been on the front line for the last 10 years into the city council to ask the right questions, to tell people the right answers, and just to be honest about where we're going and what we're doing.
Yeah. In that same vein, though, are you capable of, if difficult votes need to be made, budgetary votes when it comes to the Seattle Police Department, are you capable of doing things that your former colleagues might not like?
Yes. They know me well enough. I am absolutely a citizen of Seattle first and foremost. I love the city so much. I've lived in downtown the entire time I've been a police officer, which is unheard of. I'm a little bit of a unicorn when it comes to officers. I live across the street from the precinct. And my first priority will be to the Constitution, the city charter, the city of Seattle, my district, and then public safety. So they know where my loyalties lie. People should know that I'm not just going to be some plant for the police union. Mike and I have gone round and round, and he would admit this too, that I don't always agree with what the Seattle Police Department is doing or what the union, my own union, is doing. I have real problems with some of the decisions we've made, but that goes to the point that I work in this institution. Anybody who works in a close-knit family like the Seattle Police Department is going to have some problems with some of their family members every now and then, some of the decisions that are made. And that's just intrinsic with any organization like ours. I will say I'm incredibly proud of the Seattle Police Department. I think we have some of the best people this country could ever ask for. They are doing some work that very few people are capable of doing, and they deserve our gratitude and thanks. But we also, as a city, deserve somebody on the city council who knows about public safety, who can hold everybody across the board accountable. So my loyalty lies with the city first and foremost.
Well, let me give you an opportunity in that regard. We talked on the show recently about this alleged sick out that officers participated in. I mean, nobody's going to confirm it, obviously, because it's illegal, but it sounds like half of patrol officers called out sick. Do you know anything about that? Did you participate in it? Did you support it? Do you support it?
Yeah. So I was saying earlier, my group has been asked to be part of the, well, maybe not asked, we were assigned to be part of the Community Violence Task Force. And that's been going on since June. So our already very busy operational tempo became even more busy. In order for me to run full-time in city council, I took an unpaid leave of absence starting July 1st. So I've been off since July 1st. Now I did go in on 2 occasions, one for training and the other one for last minute. They had details of a murder suspects that had just happened this last week. So on my Wednesday after, or maybe Thursday, after working a full day campaigning, I went in and worked a full 10.5-hour shift to assist. I will say that the operational tempo of the Seattle Police Department has never been higher in my 10 years. I think that everybody is completely worn out. If I was to jump in my truck right now and go to the top of Snoqualmie Pass with my engine revving at 8,000 RPM the entire way up to the top of the pass, I should not be shocked when my truck breaks down on the side of the road somewhere near North Bend. That is what the operational tempo has been like. It is a tough haul. With that being said, absolutely, I don't believe, and I just don't think we have the capability of contacting each other for a sick out. I have a hard time getting 10 officers together to go to a Mariners game 2 months from now. We just don't have that kind of coordination in the Seattle Police Department. It takes a group called SPOC, which is our operations command, months in advance to get enough bodies for these different events. So the idea that officers somehow, conspired amongst themselves to do this sick out, we just don't have that bandwidth or capability. And not to mention, everybody knows it's illegal. Second of all, you'd have people like me that would push back so hard that we'd have a talk in the parking lot if somebody told me they were intentionally doing that. I think what you had is just officers that were so absolutely at their wits' end and burned out that they just happened to all call in sick, and call it what it is, maybe a mental health day. I don't know what that was. I certainly wasn't part of it, nor would anybody in my team be part of it. Like I said, my guys clocked out with 50 hours of overtime in 1 week during MLB All-Stars. So they were rode hard, and they continue to stand up and do this hard work.
All right. Erin Marshall, for voters who are still clinging to those ballots, make your final pitch.
Listen, if you vote for Andrew Lewis at this point, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I will be so incredibly disheartened and blown away by this city if they elect him another time. I honestly not exactly sure what my feelings about the city of Seattle would be. Vote. The problem is nobody votes. These people are elected because nobody votes. Last 4 years ago, we roughly had about an 18% turnout. 110,000 people in this district, 71,550 registered voters, and only 8,000 people got Andrew Lewis through the primary 4 years ago, 6,000 for Jim Pugil. So we roughly had about an 18% turnout. People need to vote. Now, you and I are both friends with Olga. I think she's a great choice as well. If you don't want to vote for a Seattle police officer, vote for Olga. She would be fantastic as well. I just think I'm better suited for this. I'm single. I don't have any kids. I live in downtown. I work full-time as a police officer, and I know this issue of public safety, addiction, mental illness, homelessness better than anybody on the city council or anybody who's running for city council. It would be nice to have a blue-collar worker who is a police officer, who knows public safety, who knows how the sausage is made, who can work with other people, including the mayor and Sarah Nelson, moving forward. This is a decision that is going to come down to the primary. And what's going to break my heart is if, end of August, people are like, man, I can't wait to vote for you. And they didn't vote in the primaries. And that's the problem, is we really have a lack of knowledge that this Tuesday is super critical. If I win the primary, if I get through the primary, I guarantee you that I can debate any single person on stage and really come off with, I think, the win.
Although I have to call you on something. You said you're single and have no kids. Are you saying people with kids can't be city council members effectively?
No, by no means. I will say this, though, that Bob Kettle, who is on top of Queen Anne, who has probably never spent an hour in downtown after 8 o'clock at night, who has a young daughter and who's been a stay-at-home dad for the last 4 years, should be a stay-at-home dad. I think that's a great job for him. I don't think he knows anything about downtown Seattle or public safety. Andrew Lewis is a joke. He should never have run for re-election. So I think your choices are Olga and I. And we've both agreed that if we get through the primary together, we're both going to turn our paywalls off and not collect any more money. And we're just going to go to every single event together and have honest conversations like two adults should, And, we're not going to try to ruin each other. Your choices will be clear. You can have a small business owner who's very successful, who lives in downtown, who understands the issues, or you can have a Seattle police officer who lives in downtown, who also understands the issues, especially public safety. And you can vote. And I'll be okay with either one of those. Those would both make me happy.
All right. We'll see if it comes down to that. Erin Marshall, good luck to you. And thank you so much.
Brandi, I appreciate all your support. And man, independent media, this is where it's at.
So now that we've looked at how the downtown Seattle race is shaping up, let's move to the Ballard neighborhood of Seattle. And Dan Strauss is the incumbent. I don't think he's the worst offender, okay? I don't think that Dan Strauss is the worst offender. However, I think he has some of the same issues that the other incumbents have, which is he has a poor track record on issues of public safety. Again, I played the 2019 video at the Public Safety Forum of Andrew Lewis saying we need more police officers. Dan Strauss did the exact same thing. Here's the clip.
We are going to also need to make sure that we staff our police force correctly, and that means retaining more police officers. We've got some of the best trained police officers in our state.
Yeah, and then he turned around and did the exact same thing Andrew Lewis did. 6 months later, he pledged to defund SPD by 50%, which was that pledge in and of itself was enough to cause a mass exodus of officers. So you just don't know where he's going to fall on important issues. And then he did it again, page out of Andrew Lewis's playbook. He sends out a flyer that says defunding the police was a mistake. And then he's like, I voted to fund the police time and time again, which is just such a mischaracterization of his record. The only flyer like that I would have acknowledged is one that said defunding the police was a mistake, and I'm sorry. And he obviously could not bring himself to do that. And we've seen multiple stories, our friend Jonathan Cho at Discovery Institute, on how bad the homeless situation is in the Ballard neighborhood that Dan Strauss represents, and how people have complained that Dan Strauss is simply unavailable to his constituents and doesn't seem to be taking these issues seriously. So I put Dan Strauss in the category of people who shouldn't get their jobs back. His opponents include Pete Hanning, who's the executive director of the Fremont Chamber of Commerce, also John Lisbond, Victoria Palmer, Shay Wilson, and Dale Kutzera. So we'll see what happens in the District 6 race. And then finally, I've got to touch on Tammy Morales. So Tammy Morales in District 2, the remaining incumbent who's running, she's like Shama Sawant light. And I think that if you can get her off the city council and Shama Sawant is gone, you really have eliminated the biggest ideologues from the council and people who simply weren't willing to just look at things through the lens of, okay, what's best for the most of my constituents? They want to know what's best for the activists. And that's really what the downside is to Tammy Morales in a major way. So Tammy Morales, she's running for a second term in District 2, which includes the area of the Chinatown International District. She's being challenged by Margaret Elizabeth, who's a veteran, and Tanya Wu, who's a community advocate. And Tammy Morales, she's been pretty consistent on public safety issues in that she sides with criminals. She's not like Dan Strauss and Andrew Lewis where she's flip-flopping back and forth. So I give her credit at least for owning her position and just really truly not caring about public safety. But you have a lot of community elders and individuals in the Chinatown International District who have felt like Tammy Morales, again, doesn't show up for them. And our friend Jonathan Cho did a story on the pushback.
Councilmember Morales.
Sorry, thank you.
I just want to ask you one question I'm asking all the candidates. What are you going to do about 12th and Jackson and all the open-air drug use and black market of stolen goods? Do you have a solution to that? Councilmember Morales, I'm asking all the candidates that one question. Is that something you'd like to talk about?
No, we'd like to talk to you.
If you win, what are you guys going to do about 12th and Jackson?
So we're going to do what we're doing right now. We provide services there. We go there multiple times a week. And right now we're working with a couple of community organizations to put together a 12th Avenue plan, similar to the 3rd Avenue plan, where we could possibly get a group of ambassadors to help offer services, give people treatment, behavioral health services, and basically provide care for that area. People who need to go to the hospital who are facing a lot of, unfortunately, health issues. So we do currently have law enforcement there. As part of the hotspot patrol, there's an officer there, but unfortunately, I don't see any relief in that area. It hasn't been working. I think we need to get people out of their cars and walking around.
You're talking about the officers.
The officers, but possibly, I think what we need is social workers who can make that connection, build that trust, get people inside.
You've seen what's been going on at the corner of 12th and Jackson. I've been asking all the candidates this one question. If you win, what do you do about that corner?
Well, I think that's a complicated solution because there's not one thing to do. So what I think we should probably do to help address some of our policing issues is retask our police force so they're no longer responding to healthcare calls or mental health care crises and can instead focus on crime issues in the city.
How important will it be for you to actually go there and walk that consistently to show the people?
I was there today.
You were there today?
Yeah, Tanya and I walked through today. In fact, we stopped and helped a couple that was in crisis today.
Wow.
I love Seattle. I moved here 12 years ago. I first visited in 1999 and fell in love. Obviously, it's a very different city from then. But I've lived here now for 12 years and it feels like my home, every single part of the city.
So it sounds like you're going to be a hands-on candidate.
Oh, yeah.
A hands-on council member if you win.
If I win.
So hopefully I've made a compelling case there to Seattle voters who might be watching and listening. I think it's more than we give ourselves credit for. I think we have a following in Seattle. Hopefully I've made the case as to why, look, let's just try something new. And I'm not saying, sometimes it's the devil, and I'm not saying that all the options are particularly great on some of these ballots, but there's some really good candidates who, again, have skin in the game. They have businesses, they're police officers, for instance, and they want to make the community better. They care about things like public safety, which is a no-brainer. And I just think that Seattle's at a stage where the incumbents who are running for their jobs have not shown that they deserve those positions. And I really hope the city of Seattle can show that the electorate is eager to turn a new page and to move the city in a more positive direction. All right, we've been talking about our friends at First Mark Insurance, firstmarkinsurance.com, firstmarkinsurance.com. Mike and I took the First Mark Challenge a couple months ago. We are now proud members of the First Mark family, having switched our insurance over on the recommendations of First Mark. And what's cool about the First Mark Challenge is it doesn't cost you anything. You do it virtually, and you learn a lot in the process. Here's Dave Taylor. He's the CEO of First Mark.
The First Mark Challenge, it's simple. From a consumer standpoint, right? It's simple, it's free, it doesn't take very much time, and it's going to help you feel confident about your coverage, one way or another. And you said earlier, low pressure, we are no pressure, right? At the end of the day, when we get done and we look at that spreadsheet, we're going to tell you, you're going to see the facts in front of you. It's going to be real obvious to you what the right decision is. But our job is to make recommendations. It's our client's job to decide, and we're going to support them whichever way they go.
Yeah, and a lot of people who take the First Mark Challenge end up saving money on their insurance. We spoke to a woman the other day who's saving $100 a month, $1,200 a year, which can help offset the high cost of gasoline right now. So something to think about. To me and to Mike, it was a no-brainer. And you're going to learn a lot about your insurance and your insurance needs in the process. So firstmarkinsurance.com, firstmarkinsurance.com, they work for you. So there are a lot of school board races on ballots if you've got a ballot. Again, not every county has elections, but there are a lot of school board races that are happening tomorrow. And these are incredibly important. I know they're not the sexiest thing, but they are so critically important when it comes to obviously our child's education, but also just restoring common sense and sanity. And man, how many stories have we done about the Olympia School District? I mean, that is kind of ground zero for political and social indoctrination of our kids. And there is a candidate in particular, Talana Reed, who it's almost ridiculous that we even have to mention or tell people not to vote for. I mean, she's been in national news at this point. She was appointed to a different Olympia School Board position that was vacant, but now she's running for the District 1 seat. And look, I'll say, I also don't think that folks should reelect the incumbent, Maria Flores, because everyone who's currently on the Olympia School District has got to go, given some of the stories and some of the meetings that we've watched. But Talana Reed is one of the challengers. And in case you need a reminder, in 2021, she was captured on video during an anti-police protest saying this.
You said it all. I won't take that long. I won't take up much of your time. It's raining, but can we say a couple names for just because? The police, but I want to say their names. Breonna Taylor and Yvonne McDonald. Both black women were murdered by the police. That's not okay. That's not okay. And so many more lives have been lost. And it amazes me how those pigs can sit over there to watch us peacefully talk about what we want changed in this state. It amazes me. And they don't pay attention until we tear it up. So just before I get started, tear everything up in this city until they do what we want them to do. Bad potty mouth. No kids in here, right?
Yeah, not the kind of person you want dictating your child's future. I think we can all agree on that. Ridiculous we even have to say it. I mean, F the police, calling the officers sitting there pigs, wondering, why are they even here? We're being peaceful. Well, maybe it's because you say things like tear everything up in this town until they do what we want them to do. Absolutely ridiculous. So the only person in that race left, the only person who's worthy of a vote is Andrew Flojo.
Usually.
Andrew Flojo, because you can't vote for the incumbent, for the love of God, Maria Flores, and you absolutely cannot vote for Talana Reid. So just fingers crossed. I mean, two of them have to make it through, but let's hope that Andrew Flojo is one of them. But just speaking more broadly about the importance of the school board races on your ballots, wherever you are. There's so much at stake here. You know, yesterday on Sundays with Subscribers, we were joined by Liv Finna. She is the director of the Center for Education at the Washington Policy Center. And we talked about a lot of things, but in particular about this mass exodus of public schools students over the past 3 years. How would you characterize the state of our public education system?
Well, I think after COVID, it's shown to be a problem for many families. I mean, COVID was an incredible illustration when the government came in and closed down the schools and then kept them closed longer than they really needed to be to keep the population safe. So it illustrated the fact that the public school system is top-down, run by top-down officials, distant from family needs, who don't know the faces of the children, who are not familiar with the needs of the families, may have conflicting values to those of the families, and implemented by centralized bureaucracies that are not required to respond to the needs of families. So COVID was a tremendous wake-up call for families. Yeah. They saw that the schools were closed, and they asked themselves, why? Why can't we get the schools back open? It's particularly here in Bellevue and Kirkland, where there wasn't as much incidence of the virus, and families saw that there was no real danger, no real health danger being posed. They said to themselves, so who's keeping the schools closed if we want them open? And they quickly realized that the governor, the union, the bureaucracies, they were determined to keep them closed, and they weren't going to be moved by even the facts, even by the science, showing that they were safe to open, showing that private schools were opening safely in the fall of 2020, as you recall, while the public schools were kept closed. So this was like a stark difference of approach to the education of children. The private schools, the public charter schools, those schools that are responsive to the needs of families because they must attract the dollars that families bring to their schools to stay open, those schools found ways to stay open. Yeah. Now, the public schools, they have the guaranteed income stream protected them from the needs of families, and they just did what served them best. And this has been borne out over decades, Brandi, decades of experience of families.
And you have to watch that full interview with Liv Finna. She's just so smart on these issues related to education. And we had a good conversation not only about what's wrong in public education right now, but what can be done to fix it, and also about school choice and what's working in other states. So definitely check out that interview. It's from yesterday's episode of Sundays with Subscribers. Coming up next, we're going to go over to the city of Spokane and talk about the mayoral race. But first, we've been talking about our friend Wes Jones, a wonderful real estate agent in our area. If you are in the market to sell your home, go ahead, look into a couple real estate agents, but don't choose one until you talk to our friend Wes Jones and check out sellwithwes.com. He and his team have an innovative marketing strategy, including what they call the Listing Boost Concierge Service, which gets your home ready to sell.
So we're going to come in, number one, and we're going to inspect a home, do a pre-inspection. We're going to find out all those little hidden bugs that, a buyer may be concerned with. And if a seller wants to do some cosmetic updates, whether it's flooring, whether it's lighting, countertops, even a kitchen, we're going to help guide them through that. So the Listing Boost Concierge Service, what we can do is we can project manage those rehab projects. We have a list of contractors and preferred vendors that we like to work with and have a ton of experience with, and we'll take that off a seller's hands. We'll go ahead and run that project for them, and we even have some options where they can pay at closing out of their net proceeds.
Yeah, which is awesome. It takes a lot of stress out of the home selling process. So check out sellwithwest.com. Sellwithwest.com, a better way to sell your home. All right, from Seattle and the west side over to the east side in Spokane. Spokane obviously is a much different political environment than the west side of the state, but they're dealing with some of the same issues, around homelessness and substance abuse and crime. And in fact, at the time, it was the largest homeless encampment in the state was in Spokane. It was on WashDOT property, which explains a lot, but it was called Camp Hope, and we had done some stories about it. So they have a lot of consequential issues there. And so you have the incumbent mayor, Nadine Woodward, who is a Republican. She's a former TV news anchor, and there is a familiar face running against her as a Democrat. Lisa Brown is the former state commerce director, but she also served in the state legislature for a long time, and she ran unsuccessfully for Congress. So this has become a very heated campaign between Lisa Brown and Mayor Nadine Woodward. We did reach out to both of them to offer them an opportunity to come on. We did not get a yes from Lisa Brown's campaign, but Mayor Woodward was nice enough to join us. Mayor Woodward, welcome back to Undivided.
Thank you. Good to be here with you, Brandi.
So you've had quite the campaign. Why do you and Lisa Brown not like each other?
Well, I think there's a clear contrast about different visions for our city. We couldn't be more different in how we plan to address some of the biggest challenges of our city that cities across the state and across the country are dealing with, and that's public safety and homelessness. So we have very different ways of approaching these big challenges.
Yeah, and one of the narratives that she sort of pushed in her ads, and also I got to watch part of the debate the other day, was that homelessness is worse, drug use is worse, crime is worse under your leadership. That's what she claims. Can you dispute that?
Well, I mean, crime and homelessness across the state is worse because of reckless state policies, and some of the policies even within the city because of our city council. And these are policies that I'm fighting every single day, especially on the public safety front, the reform measures, the police reform measures of 2021 that took tools away from our officers. My police chief and I have been at the state legislature the last 2 years fighting to get those tools back. The decriminalization of drugs in our state for the past 2 years. Washington now leads the nation in overdose deaths, nearly 3,000 last year. And a lot of the homeless that we've seen, the increase in homelessness, the increases in crime is coming from reckless state policies. So yeah, we have huge challenges, but I'm the only one, sometimes I feel like I'm the only one fighting all of these reckless policies, and I'll continue to do that. I tell people every day, I'm fighting the good fight to save Spokane, to keep Spokane from becoming like other cities up and down the West Coast. And I have a lot of fight in me. It's worth it. I feel like I need to save my city from these reckless policies.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you in terms of I don't disagree with your assessment of what's leading to the rise in homelessness across the state, substance abuse and crime. I do believe a lot of it's attributable to what's happening in Olympia, but at the same time, you are running to be mayor again. So what is in your control? Starting with public safety, what is in your control absent those state policies to try to improve the situation for your constituents?
Well, we've done a lot. So in the last year, we created a violent crimes task force, and we have arrested 150 violent and prolific offenders, built stronger cases to get them longer terms in jail. We've also launched, similar to what Seattle has done in the last year, quite successfully, a high utilizer initiative where we go after those who have at least a dozen misdemeanors. They're the ones committing the quality of life crimes, especially in our downtown, the car prowlings, the car break-ins, the trespass, the property crimes. And if anybody has over a dozen misdemeanors, then we aggregate those. We get them more time in detention so they're not back on the street committing more crimes. We are woefully understaffed at the police department. I, in my next term, am committed to bringing our staffing levels up to the national average for a city our size. That means 100 more officers. I am part of some of the recruitment measures that we're taking to hire laterals from across the state and other states that aren't happy with the liberal policies that their states and their cities are practicing, to come to Spokane and let them know that they'll be working for a law and order mayor. I think that's really important. And we revised a lot of our city ordinances to make them stronger. We actually got those across the finish line with our council on sit and lie, camping, and banning drug use in public spaces. So those are all things, but if I had a council that I also had more alignment with, we could get a lot more done. I have a super majority on my city council that prevents me from vetoing any of their punitive or dangerous ordinances, and it takes a lot more time to get things done. If I could get just one more council member elected in this election season, aligned with me, at the very least, I'd have veto power.
Yeah. So when it comes to you and Lisa Brown, what is the difference, do you see, the fundamental difference in how you would solve the homelessness crisis that, to your admission, is getting worse there as it is in other places of the state?
Well, my biggest challenge in my first term was undeniably Camp Hope. We had the largest outdoor encampment in the state of Washington. It grew at one point to 600 people. I did everything I could to close that encampment. Lisa Brown did everything she could to keep it open and to line the pockets of the protester, the homeless advocate who admittedly created that encampment. Julie Garcia from Jules Helping Hands put the word out across the state of Washington. If you come to Spokane, you get a tiny home. That camp wasn't populated organically, it was orchestrated. And it was to allow Lisa Brown to step down from commerce after she had already given the county $24 million to try to house those individuals, and say that she came in and saved the day because Mayor Woodward couldn't get it closed. We had a federal lawsuit against us that handcuffed us from doing anything on that property, a WashDOT property in the city of Spokane, that basically terrorized an underserved and low-income neighborhood and the businesses there for 18 months. I spent a lot of my time in that neighborhood talking to businesses, mitigating the impacts there. She never spent 1 minute talking to any neighbor who they saw their property values go down or any of the businesses that were impacted. That's the difference between me and Lisa Brown. There will be more Camp Hopes, smaller ones, and neighborhoods across the city. She also supports safe parking lots for people to live in their cars, homeless people in neighborhoods. I absolutely do not support that. We have programs for homeless. We have programs for people who are addicted. We just need tougher guardrails to direct them into those services and not coddle and enable people who are homeless on our street, committing crimes to fuel their addiction and victimizing our community.
Yeah, and I mean, for the record, we've had you on to talk about Camp Hope, and any insinuation that that was somehow a city problem is absurd. In fact, there's a WashDOT encampment in Seattle that you've probably heard about. It went up in flames next to a hospital over the weekend, and we heard an interview with the new director of the Commerce Department, being asked, well, why can't you guys do this quicker? Why can't you get rid of this? And just sort of saying, well, there's a lot, it's really complicated. And so those are state problems, and it's handcuffing mayors.
And Brandi, I'm the only mayor that was blamed for my encampment. The governor or no other state agency or anyone in state leadership has ever blamed any other city for their encampments but me.
Well, why do you think that is, Mayor?
It's political.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Purely political.
And to me, that's undeniable, is just because you didn't see the governor or the Commerce Department blame Bruce Harrell for this encampment on I-5. In fact, WashDOT ended up working with the city just a couple of days ago to go in and clear it on an emergency basis. And so it's unfortunate that these things are treated politically. I just don't see another explanation for it. So Mayor Woodward, I think it's pretty clear you and Lisa Brown are going to make it through the primary election. So what do you think are going to be the key sort of talking points that you're going to continue past Tuesday?
Well, first of all, we've had a very successful campaign. We have outraised Lisa Brown. In fact, 2 weeks before the primary, I broke the record for any mayoral candidate in the city of history to raise the amount of money that I've raised in an entire election cycle, and we did it before the primary. I think that's a clear indication of the support that I have. We are a blue city in a sea of red. Eastern Washington is red. But these are nonpartisan races. I don't receive any money from any party or an endorsement from any party. I am running purely as a former citizen and journalist myself who reported on the news, on the challenges that our city has faced. I don't come from a place of politics. I think people know that I'm serving my city because I believe government exists to govern for the people, not over the people. Lisa Brown has been a career politician. She has run for everything she possibly can. I'd like to know, after she loses this election, what she's going to run for next, or what she's going to be appointed, what political position she's going to be appointed to. I think she's doing this just for herself. I am doing this to serve my city. But this is the most important election, I believe, that Spokane has seen in the 33 years that I've been in this city as a citizen and the 28 years that I covered elections, because this is going to change. The outcome of this election is going to change the direction that our city goes. Do we continue moving forward, or do we move so far backwards with reckless policies that our city is going to be unrecognizable? When I'm on the doorstep, what I hear is, don't let our city become like the cities up and down the West Coast. Spokane is hardworking. We're gritty to some extent. We pull ourselves up from our bootstraps. We work hard for the things that we want in our life, whether that's a home or whatever that is. And that's who I'm representing here. And we have to stop being a beacon for people who come here because of reckless state policies that they can get on government subsidies, and then they can just live their life addicted on the streets and victimized neighborhoods. It is not allowable. But I need help on the city council so that we can pass the kinds of local laws that we can make our city safer and help those who really do want help.
Yeah. Mayor Nadine Woodward, we appreciate it. Good luck tomorrow, and we'll be obviously tracking this race closely long after the primary as well.
Thank you, Brandi.
Obviously, Lisa Brown and Nadine Woodward are going to make it through the primary. The other challengers just don't have any name recognition. And so what has been a really heated race pre-primary, I'm sure that will continue between the primary and the general election. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. All right, coming up next, we're going to have the results of some polling that we put out to you guys on Patreon and also across social media. But first, I've been talking so much about the Eastside Weight Loss Clinic plan. I've been doing endorsements for them since January, and it's because it works. And it's because I'm down 36 pounds. And I've heard from so many of you who have just seen fantastic results on the program as well. We ran into Ben and his wife, Leslie, who we took a picture and combined we're down 101 pounds. And I mean, I started the program in November, and I lost most of my 36 pounds in just 2 months. And it was the same for them, just really quick results. And you could tell they were just so happy. So no prepackaged meals, no counting calories, no strenuous workout routine. If a program that's simple to follow and has structure to it sounds appealing to you, do what I did and what so many others have done. Schedule a free 15-minute consultation with Dr. Ryan Coogan and his team at eastsideweightlossclinic.com. That's eastsideweightlossclinic.com. Okay, since we're doing an atypical show today, breaking through our typical format, we wanted to also include some polls and get your guys' check your temperature on a couple things. Nicole, if you want to come in for this. So I asked on Twitter, I felt like this was kind of a mean question. It was like negative, but I'm like, whatever. It's how I feel. I asked, which incumbent Seattle Council candidate do you most want to see lose on Tuesday? So who do you think they chose between Dan Strauss, Andrew Lewis, and Tammy Morales?
Andrew.
No.
Tammy.
I was actually a little surprised that it wasn't Andrew Lewis, just because he's the most high-profile failure of the three of them.
Tammy's pretty significant, though. Like, pretty extreme.
She's pretty extreme, and that's sort of what it seemed. Steve said, I think Morales is the most diabolical of that threesome. Lewis
it's probably true.
This comment's actually gold. I think Morales is the most diabolical of that threesome. Lewis is a bumbling fool, and Strauss will go along with the prevailing current, whatever that might be. Andrew said, Morales is more well-funded than Strauss. I have opinions, but seeing Lewis be primaried on Tuesday would tell us all that Seattle voters are ready to go back to sanity. Craven wrote, every damn one of them. Couldn't pick between the three of them.
It's tough to decide.
Chadwick said, and I couldn't tell if this was like sarcasm, I want all of them to win. Complaining about Seattle is my passion. I'll be ruined if Seattle gets better. Well, I'm sure that's sarcasm, but I don't know if it was sarcasm like directed at me. Either way, we'll see. Okay, I also put up a poll exclusive on Patreon for subscribers on Patreon. I would do it on locals, but there's no polling function. So that's the one thing Patreon has going for it ahead of locals. So I asked, which issue is driving your votes? And I mean, I think that what I'm interested in seeing is whether this is going to be kind of a bellwether election to test the temperature of voters ahead of 2024.
Right.
So I'm not saying that this election isn't important. Obviously, we're doing an election special today because it is important. But I kind of want to see the upswing of voters showing that they care about pro-public safety candidates,
Right. Well, we
sane
thought
candidates.
that last year was going to be the beginning of that, and
it
wasn't. And so, yes, will this year actually be the beginning of that or not? Right?
Yeah. So I asked, if you're voting in Tuesday's primary, what issue is most driving your choices? I wrote, what issue is most driving your choices the most? I should go in and correct that.
What issue is driving your vote?
Most driving your choices the most? Apparently I can't write. I said public safety, education, taxes, balance, or other. And by far, you guys said public safety, which isn't a particular surprise to me. Sally said we need balance in government that includes public safety, taxes, and parental rights. We need some sanity in Washington politics. Edward wrote, public safety is 50.5% of my main concern, tied with 49.5% on taxes. Well, technically, they're not tied then if you gave one additional percentage point to public safety.
I think that education is way up there because I think it
public
all
safety?
ties. Well, because I think it's all tied together, right? Like, I think that this generation, I'm witnessing some things by kids coming out of school right now and they just don't get it.
Yeah.
And so I think that education is just has been abandoned in the old sense, and like even just actions and consequences aren't really like coming together there. And that's where this public safety thing is coming from. We have all these young kids that are committing these crimes.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that these are kind of underlying issues that it could improve our public safety situation, and even taxation. You know, when you take so much money away from working families and they're dealing with poverty already, what do you think that some people are going to turn to? But I tend to agree with TJ, and it's something similar to what I've said before. He said it's tough to pick just one, but if I'm not alive, I can't pick any of the others.
That's true.
And that's what I really believe is nothing else matters if you're not safe. If you're not safe in your home or in your community. Jean said, I picked public safety as the most recent crime wave is getting closer to my home. Seeing people ram vehicles into stores and stealing what they can or taking over people's property and setting up chop shops is beyond insane.
Or these parents lately that have left their kids home alone, which you could do, and their houses are being broken into in safe neighborhoods with their kids at home. This is crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's really crazy.
And it is, and that's why we talk about Seattle so much and trying to kind of stop the bleeding in Seattle, because that just radiates outside of it in such a significant way. So these issues don't just stop at the border, for sure. Let me see the rest of that. Jean finished. She said, we need our current laws enforced, and I'm not sure we can accomplish that without balancing our government. And I tend to agree with that significantly. So thank you for joining us for our all-election episode today. The primary is tomorrow. Of course, you always have until, common sense, just vote for common sense. You always have until 8 p.m. on Election Day to get those ballots in a ballot drop box. I don't want to see this, this 20% voter turnout. How sad is that? Come on, people. You can do it. I will also note tomorrow, since it's Election Day, and since we want people to be hyped up about every single election, even off your elections, we're going to forego our typical live show at noon in favor of an live election special tomorrow night, right after the first ballots drop. So 8:30 to 9 p.m. We will be going through initial results after the ballots drop, and we'll be offering some analysis and taking your questions and comments from the stream.
Brandi.
You get to see Evening Brandi.
Evening.
Who is
Nicole.
probably just more tired, but I'll be all hyped up on coffee tomorrow night. So
I was thinking maybe evening hair, evening gown.
You want me to wear an evening gown on tomorrow night's live election special? No. So we will see you guys tomorrow night at 8:30 p.m. We will, of course, post that to give you a reminder that we're not doing a noon show. We're going to move it and do it after the ballots drop. So we hope you join us. We can answer any questions or comments and read comments that you have about the initial election results. Well, thank you for being here on this Monday. Thank you so much for your commitment to giving common sense a comeback. Lord knows we need it heading into the primary election tomorrow. And hey, maybe this will be a positive bellwether for things to come in 2024. As always, if you have not become a subscriber already, please do so. Go to undividedpod.com. Undividedpod.com. Support our mission and our movement for just $5 a month.